Superman is one of the most iconic and beloved superheroes of all time, but what if he turned evil? The Plutonian hails from the Mark Waid series Irredeemable, and its spin-off Incorruptible, both published by Boom Studios. In this series, we get to imagine what a Superman character would be like if he wasn't driven by hope and kindness, but instead driven by a sense of entitlement and rage. Daniel Hartigan was once a hero who did his best to earn the respect and love of the people of Earth, but has turned hard over the years, in part by the loss he himself has suffered, but also by the fact that he feels in essence betrayed by humanity, who he sees as lesser and who he grows to despise for critiquing his failings. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not show us you love us by clicking that like button. Number 9. Centaur Superman. Yeah, Superman turns into a freaking centaur in the weird 90s comic miniseries Whom Gods Destroy. Seriously, it's really bizarre, you should check it out. But even before Superman undergoes this transformation, I really like this alternate because it gets to explore what the world is like when it actually ages, but Kal-El does not. In this reality, Lois Lane and Lana Lang are now elderly women and have to deal with the fact that Superman hasn't really physically aged. Mentally is starting to become detached from the world as well. In comic books, we don't really have a realistic representation of the passage of time because no one is ever allowed to get old. This series explores that a bit. Then it gets really weird when we find out that Germany actually ended up winning sort of World War II, and it's ruled by those soldiers from World War II and the god Adonis as well. Superman gets turned into an evil centaur, Lois becomes Wonder Woman, Lana becomes the Oracle of Delphi. It's strange, but it's also through the combination of mythology and comics that we get to see the characters' internal struggles reflected in the transformations that they undergo. It's just a really interesting exploration of Superman's crisis, really. And then it gets a happy ending when all three actually decide to live in a polyamorous love triangle on the moon in Superman's Fortress of Solitude. So yeah, it's not an evil centaur forever, you know? Number 8. Superboy Prime. Superboy Prime originally started out as an extremely powerful villain in the comics. He became iconic after it was revealed that he was so strong that he can even warp and change reality. How? Apparently with just a punch. There was a time in the comics where Superboy Prime was shown to be so strong that he basically punched reality, splintering it, and in essence reshaping it. If Superboy Prime has the power to punch retcons into existence, what can't he do? Superboy Prime was originally corrupted and became a villain mainly because of his sense of loss, having lost his homeworld. However, over time he would actually be redeemed and even fight alongside other heroes in the comics, which is why I've ranked him so low here. Although when he was evil and entitled, he was really evil and entitled, which also made him one of the most frightening Superman alternates. Number 7. Bizarro. Bizarro was a pretty wild idea for a character if you ask me. Bizarro is the clone of Superman, or at least sometimes he is. At other times he's actually his own character from a completely different planet. So it kinda depends on which version of Bizarro we're talking about. In many versions of Bizarro's story, as there have been many versions of this character, even some sharing the same continuity, he is a clone of Superman created by Lex Luthor. But in many cases the cloning or duplicating process basically goes awry, resulting in a sort of reverse Superman. Instead of him having heat vision, he has freezing vision and heat breath. He thinks bad is good and good is bad, so he just ends up being a bad guy. He also is often not too bright. There's even been a version of Bizarro that was created by the Joker, and more recently there was an incomplete clone version of him that was created by Lex but actually became super intelligent. Number 6. Cyborg Superman. What if Superman was the Terminator? That's basically what this version of Superman is. He comes to us from the reign of Superman and is actually Hank Henshaw. Well, Hank Henshaw's brain inside a cyborg more specifically. After Hank's brain is transferred to the cyborg, he decides to become Superman, cause why not? His plan is to use the alias of Superman in order to destroy Metropolis with a nuclear missile. So a little more insidious than Terminator really, who is only targeting one person, Sarah Connor. Number 5. Omni-Man. Omni-Man is a complex character in the Invincible universe. He is both a hero and a villain, and sometimes more of an anti-hero. He is the father of Mark Grayson, the protagonist of the story, also known as the hero Invincible. While there have been times he fought against Mark, he has also fought alongside him, to be honest. In season 1 of the animated series based on the Invincible comic book series, Omni-Man takes on and defeats single-handedly the Guardians of the Globe. Initially, he told his son that he and his his race of superpowered beings, the Viltrumites, were heroes who traveled the universe to protect worlds. However, it's later revealed that this was a lie. Instead, the Viltrumites are basically a people who travel the universe looking for worlds to conquer, which was also Omni-Man, aka Nolan Grayson's objective on Earth. The people of Earth can either surrender and live under Viltrumite rule, or can resist and be destroyed. That's the way he sees it. Later on in the comic series, however, Omni-Man would go on to become the new Emperor of Viltrum. He uses his power and influence to protect the people of Earth against other Viltrumites who would seek to harm it. So, he might seem like a really bad guy, but there's a lot going on with Nolan. Number 4. Hyperion. Hyperion basically serves to act as a commentary on Superman. Sure, he's a Marvel ripoff, but that's kind of the whole point of his character. Marvel created Hyperion so they could basically examine Superman as a character, and what it means to have a hero who is literally like a god on Earth. The whole point of him is his similarity and also his subtle differences to Supes. Hyperion is often part of a team called the Squadron Supreme, or depending on the version, sometimes even the Squadron Supreme of America. Now, that definitely feels similar to the Justice League or the Justice League of America, no? Hyperion is also known as Marcus Milton. Typically, his origin is that he was an alien who was sent to Earth as a baby. Even more familiar. And not only that, but Hyperion, who can fly, is super strong and super durable, also is apparently the last known survivor of an eternal alien race whose planet died. His origin and character have Superman written basically all over it. He became one of his Earth's premier superheroes and ended up joining the Squadron Supreme. At least that is one of his main origin stories. But also, different to Superman, he's kind of a jerk. Number 3. Ultraman. This evil version of Superman may not be using his powers for good, but other than that huge con, he has some pretty big pros. Superman's weaknesses becoming his strengths being, one of the big ones. Kal-El is weakened by kryptonite, but for Ultraman, it actually only makes him stronger. Also, DC gave Superman a weakness to magic because otherwise he'd be too OP, right? Well, Ultraman is just that much more OP because he doesn't have this weakness either. He actually has murdered many magic-using gods on his own Earth, so he's simply better for capability. Sure, the sun weakens him, but he can still beat Superman any night of the week. As long as you don't mind the evil part, this Superman is actually very evil, but also very OP. You don't mind the evil part, do you? We're all a little bored of Superman's goody two-shoes act, right? And if you are, then Ultraman is the villain for you. Number 2. Injustice. This Superman is a lot darker than the OG, and honestly, I kind of love that about him. You know me, the closer that a superhero is to walking the line of super villainy, or is just, basically a supervillain, I like supervillains, the more into them I tend to be. Let's not examine too closely what that says about my psyche, let's just keep going. The Injustice games have great alternate versions of almost every favorite DC character out there. Superman's story and the story of the game itself is set into motion after Joker tricks him into believing Lois is Doomsday, which causes her death and the death of Superman and Lois's unborn child. This plus the destruction of Metropolis makes Superman pretty much just lose it. He kills the Joker and sets out to bring about world peace through basically world domination. At the end of the game, if you choose him to win against Batman, he even uses Brainiac technology to control Bruce's mind. Would you want to live in a peaceful, Superman-controlled world? I mean, it'd be peaceful, but free will? Free will. Number 1. Homelander. Talk about commentaries on Superman. Homelander is also definitely one of those, but a much more crass commentary, I would say, especially if we're talking about, the comics. This version of Superman is not really a hero, but instead is poised in Garth Ennis's comic series The Boys as the main antagonist, although in reality there are some bigger bads than him, but still. In general, he is known to be one of the most vile of the supes in the comics. The Boys imagines a harsh, brutal world that offers what it suggests is a more realistic take on what superpowered humans would be like, the actual worst. These heroes pretend to save the day putting on big smiles, while really many of them are addicts, murderers, and often worse criminals than those they fight against, because they have superpowers, they can do anything they want. Homelander can fly, is invulnerable, insanely strong and fast, and has his own version of heat vision. He's also the leader of the Seven, the premier superhero team from Vought, which Yeah, that would suck to live in that world because he's the worst and he's the leader of the main superhero team. Vought is the company that created superheroes and also works to make money off their brands, marketing them as big saviors and profiting for it while covering up, all the terrible things that they actually do to preserve and safeguard those profits and their business. Number 10. Gata. Gata is a famous pop star whose name is really Sheila Romero. Long after the Batman we know, Bruce Wayne, has died, there is a new Batman on the streets of Gotham. This Batman, unfortunately for Gata, is hogging all the media and press coverage. Taking this unintended slight quite personally, Gata sets out to get revenge on Batman, becoming the new Catwoman. In the end, however, she does fall into the standard trap of many other alternate and main continuity versions of the character, falling in love with Batman while trying to beat him. So although she starts out as a more evil, villainous type, by the end of the story, she's on the side of good, alongside her once enemy, Batman. Number 9. Batman Returns. In the Tim Burton universe turned Joel Schumacher universe that all started with the Batman 1989 film, we get introduced to the film's very own Selina Kyle. This version of the character is portrayed by Michelle Pfeiffer, who seemingly rises from the dead, surviving a very deadly fall from a high-rise office building window. This version of Catwoman is hell-bent on getting revenge on her old boss, Max Schreck, played by Christopher Walken, who tried to kill her after she learned of his villainous plans to steal Gotham's power. Selina ends up dating Bruce, not knowing that he is Batman to start. There are later indications in following films and television series that followed this that those two actually end up together and have a daughter named Helena, implying that this version of Catwoman inevitably does change her criminal ways, reforming and ending up partnered with Bruce permanently. However, in the film Batman Returns itself, Catwoman is really only known for being a villain, even if you do perhaps understand her motives and feel that she might be justified in her actions. At least a little bit justified, I think. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more Catwoman lists, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. I love talking about Catwoman, so I'd love to do more Catwoman lists. I don't know how many evil alternate versions of her are left though. This was hard to find these ones. Really had to think about it. Number 8. Earth -22. While we don't know much about this version of Catwoman, we do know that she was one of the victims that was killed by the Joker during his final hurrah after he had learned that he was dying. At least the Joker of Earth -22, which is part of the dark multiverse. Catwoman in this reality was both an ally and an enemy of Batman, and Joker went on a rampage killing all of Batman's rogues, which was part of what pushed Bruce to the breaking point and caused Batman to snap Joker's neck in a blind moment of rage. This version of Catwoman, while likely a criminal, also had a tragic fate that played a role in helping to create one of the most evil versions of Batman ever, the Batman Who Laughs. Number 7. Batman 60s Show. Catwoman in the Batman live-action 1960s show became an even greater, bolder, and more deadly villain as time went on throughout the course of the series. Sure, she also happened to have a romantic spark with Batman, but that didn't as often get in the way of her dastardly deeds. And even with her becoming more and more of a romantic interest as time went on, when Eartha Kitt stepped in to take the role after Julie Newmar left the show, becoming Catwoman in the 3rd season, she really only served to elevate the villainous side of Selina Kyle even more. I feel like Eartha Kitt also helped to make it fun and sexy for female characters like Catwoman to just be evil, unapologetically evil. Being bad can be fun after all. Number 6. Madam Cat. Madam Cat hails from the Amalgam universe, which over at DC is given the reality number of 496 and over at Marvel is given the reality number of 9602. In this reality, Selena Luthor was the daughter of Green Skull, aka Lex Luthor, and Lois Lane. She was basically raised to be evil, despite the fact that her mother did try to shield her and protect her from her father's villainy. As a result, Lois was killed by Green Skull, who then raised Selena to be just as vile and trained her in the ranks of Hydra. Despite her villainous past though, Selena does end up betraying her father in the end and seemingly switching sides to the side of good, before perishing in an explosion. At least it seemed like she perished in an explosion. Madam Cat is a combination of DC's Catwoman and Marvel's Madam Hydra. Number 5. Deceased. In the world of Deceased, Selena Kyle becomes infected with the anti-life equation and becomes insanely violent and zombie-like. Although those infected aren't really in control of themselves and simply are compelled to behave the way they do, not specifically having intentions of their own, I think we can still consider them to be pretty evil. I mean, they're basically zombies. Zombies are monsters, and monsters generally fall on the side of evil as opposed to good. Except for good monsters, that is, like zombies who just, want to fall in love, or the lovable monsters of Monsters, Inc. In this reality, Catwoman ends up defeated by Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy after she has succumbed to the anti-life equation virus. Or I guess just the anti-life equation. Just feels weird to not call it a virus because they're basically like zombies, Number 4. Catwoman 2. Catwoman 2 is Catwoman's kind of unofficial predecessor from the Kingdom Come universe. Here, Catwoman herself, Selena Kyle, has retired from the world of vigilantism and thievery to start her own successful cosmetics company and brand. And successful indeed it was. She presumably spends most of her time running the multi-billion-dollar company, and I guess just chilling and spending her money. Catwoman 2, on the other hand, uses Selena's former mantle, but is one of the new heroes to appear on the scene, whose methods are actually looked down upon by the older heroes. She follows the brutal and misguided example of the Man of Tomorrow, the villain Magog. Number 3. Maggie Kyle. Maggie Kyle is known for being Catwoman's sister. In the main continuity, she was tormented by Black Mask to the point that she basically lost her mind and had kind of a psychotic break. Inevitably, what happened was she was made to consume pieces of her husband after she watched him being ever so slowly killed by Black Mask. Yikes. In the reality referred to as Earth Whatever, it was Selena who was Black Mask's victim, and Maggie was the one who avenged her as Catwoman. Maggie was also very specific with the kind of revenge that she wanted and got when it came to Black Mask, killing him slowly, tormenting him as he had her sister in this reality, Selena. Maggie also seemed to relish what she had done, smiling gleefully about it. Part of what makes this version of Catwoman, Maggie's Catwoman, so evil here is what she did to Black Mask. The manner of it specifically, and of course her reaction to that act. She seems really creepily happy about it. Number 2. Female Fury Catwoman. While Holly Robinson as Catwoman wasn't necessarily evil, Holly Robinson herself isn't very evil, there was a period during her time as Catwoman where she was really evil. This wasn't necessarily her fault, as she had basically been captured and brainwashed by Darkseid into becoming one of his female Furies. This all went down during Final Crisis, when Darkseid had become the master of the anti-life equation and used it to basically enslave Earth, bending its inhabitants to his will, Holly Robinson's Catwoman included. And if you're wondering why Holly became Catwoman in the first place, it actually all started because Selena Kyle learned that she was pregnant and she was planning on retiring and kind of disappearing for the sake of her future baby. Of course, that didn't all go according to plan because obviously Selena is still in the comics and is Catwoman, so yes. And she doesn't just have a baby strapped to her or a kid running around her ankles with her while she fights. It'd be hard to fight if you had to bring your kid to work with you. You probably just shouldn't be a superhero if you have to do that. You should call someone and get a babysitter. Number 1. Raina Creel and her copycat Catwoman army. In the main continuity, Raina Creel was actually an impersonator of Catwoman, or rather, she created a whole team of people to impersonate Catwoman, and she was the one that was in charge of it. And this criminal gang that she created was exclusively made up of copycats who all wore Catwoman's older suit design. Raina was introduced after Batman and Catwoman's wedding was called off, and Catwoman went off to do some of her own things outside of the Bats and Gotham Shadows, taking up residence in Villa Hermosa in California during the start of her own 2018 solo series. Catwoman here faced off against a whole massive group of other Catwomen who are all seemingly hired by Raina Creel to carry out villainous and illegal deeds on her behalf. I just think this is such a cool idea for a story, and also there's some really good covers from that story. Some really great covers in there.
Number 10. Dark Multiverse Superman. Now, I don't know if this is laziness, but the Dark Universe version of Superman doesn't really get much justification as to why his mind snapped and he killed millions of people, his own family, and most of the other superheroes. The Batman of this universe, after seeing this Superman kill his own wife, and after he cuts off Batman's arm, decides that this guy just ain't it. And he transformed himself into a doomsday Batman hybrid called the Devastator, and smashed down this Superman, poisoned him, and impaled him on spikes. A quick evil Superman story, but it was in service of an amazing Batman story. Number 9, Lex Luthor Superman. Okay, this evil Superman isn't technically Superman, but when Superman and Doomsday are both killed by each other, Earth Prime's Lex Luthor returns to Earth after getting bored of being the new Darkseid on Apokolips and learns of Superman's demise. Lex Luthor, with the help of a superpowered armor, steps in and makes himself the new Superman. I mean, not really Lex, but sure, we'll just give this one to you. Now, he had some good intentions, but it's Lex Luthor. He wasn't exactly the best person for the job. After having multiple falling outs with the new real Superman, pre-Flashpoint Clark Kent, he gave up the title of Superman and started acting as an independent hero, and sometimes a villain. Number 8, Parallax Superman. In this story, Parallax, the physical embodiment of fear, took over the body of Kal-El, making him submit to Laxi by torturing children, and uses this Kryptonian's powers to confront Sinestro, who traps the cocky super entity and teleports him to the caves of Quard, where Sinestro tries to take Parallax out of Superman's body for his own evil plans. But surprise! Parallax has already escaped Superman's body, and a battle ensues between Sinestro and Parallax, leading to the surface of Quard. Superman escapes from the caves and in a last-ditch attempt to defeat the entity, steals Sinestro's power ring and coerces Parallax to swallow his super butt whole. Superman is a clever guy though. He traps Parallax inside the power ring and the day is saved. Gosh, a lot of plot twists there. Number 7, Hank Henshaw. Hanky Boy here was already a villain of Superman's from past stories, but when Superman was killed by Doomsday, Hank, unable to directly get revenge against Superman himself, decided to attack his reputation instead. Come on, man. He's already dead. Not cool, dude. Not cool. After creating a Kryptonian cyborg body using the birthing matrix, he took on the guise of Supes and went about destroying Superman's memorial plaque. Then he saved the president to get clout so the president would recognize him as the real Superman. Eventually, he and Mongol destroyed Coast City, and the real reborn Superman, with the help of others, defeated and discredited him. At least he looked really cool. Number 6, Overman. Now this version of our favorite red and blue man didn't end up in Kansas when he was ejected from Krypton. No. This Kal-El found himself in Sudetenland, Germany in 1938 and was acquired by a certain mustached fascist. With Kal and Kryptonian tech, the Reich were obviously able to win World War II and rule over the entire planet. Later, Overman would become disgusted with the stashed man when the Holocaust had been finalized, although he still served the state. It's kind of a weird set of morals there, dude. Eventually, he was cloned and received a love in the form of Overgirl, but after her death, he was completely heartbroken, and he supplied information to the freedom fighters who long opposed the fascists, which eventually led to the death of the new Reichman, the Justice League, and the city of Metropolis. With the grief of all these losses holding him down, he was overthrown by his friend. Damn. Kinda hard to feel bad for him though. Number 5, Injustice Superman. The Superman of the Injustice universe has pretty much the same history as the baseline Superman, but when the Joker kidnaps the pregnant Lois Lane, it lures Superman into a trap of fear gas. In his poisoned state, Superman hallucinates his true love as the villain Doomsday and instantly attacks, flying Lois and his unborn child into space, killing them, and inadvertently causing a nuclear bomb to destroy his city, Metropolis. After suddenly losing his city, wife, and baby, Superman goes into an honestly understandable rage, bursting into the interrogation room where Batman is learning the true intentions of the Joker and plunges his super fist right through the guy's chest. Following these events, Superman takes control of the Earth and rules it as a tyrant. Fortunately, Batman forms an insurgency to try and beat this corrupted Superman, eventually enlisting the aid of another Earth's Justice League, and I guess technically whoever plays the tied-in video game, to defeat him and save the day. Number 4, Brutal. Brutal is a cloned version of Superman, but unlike a certain bizarre version of Superman, who we will talk about later, don't worry, this duplication was done by none other than Darkseid himself. He raised the resulting clone into a soldier, nay, a weapon, and unleashed him on the superheroes of Earth 2, along with Steppenwolf and the other Hunger Dogs, but they don't really matter. When Steppenwolf tried to subvert his master Darkseid and take Earth as his own, brutally murders him with his heat vision, establishing his devotion to his Lord Darkseid. Let me make my intentions clear. "Hail Darkseid!" Which is just a sweet line after you murdered a general of Darkseid. The Earth became lost to Darkseid's minions, and eventually, after a lot of other stuff, Kal-Zod, Earth 2's Superman, faced Brutal in combat, and after a furious battle, showed that Brutal was just an imitation, and a cheap one at that, as his body began to deteriorate, and the day was saved. Again. Hey guys, just wanted to say a quick thanks for watching. We hope you're enjoying the video. If you are, why not head on over to that pretty little subscribe button and give us a follow and a like. You guys are the reason we can even be here in the first place. Love you! Okay, on to the top 3. Number 3. Super Doom. On Earth 45, Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, and Clark Kent are scientists instead of reporters, and they use their smarts to build a machine that can turn thoughts into reality, which, I mean, how the heck did they think that was a good idea? I can think of 10 things right now that should never become reality. Anyways, using the aforementioned thought-to-form machine, they try to create a being called Superman, who would be capable of doing amazing things and who could save worlds. But when they are forced to sell their idea to Overcorp, they decide to rebrand and end up creating a monstrosity. Superman, the Last Night of Tomorrow. Or Super Doom. With a corporate-fueled agenda of destroying all competition, Super Doom quickly becomes the strongest super being on its own planet, and then enters the bleed space to murder all other versions of Superman. Of course, bad guys never win forever, so after defeating and devouring multiple different Supermen of multiple different Earths, he was stopped by the Superman and Lex Luthor of Earth 22, who stranded him between universes. He's since been used in a few other storylines and remains one of the most formidable evil versions of Superman to this day. I mean, he didn't even die. Number 2. Bizarro. When Lex Luthor gets the plans for a device called the Duplicator Ray, he modifies the device and uses it to try and create a clone of Superman, who will follow his every order without question. But since our Lex can't seem to do anything right, the resulting doppelganger is an unintelligent, unpredictable, backwards version of Superman, eventually known as Bizarro. Bizarro is a main villain for Superman, appearing in many stories, and I'm so glad because, gosh, he's just so fun to see! Eventually, Bizarro gets a case of the blues and longs for love, and gets the hots for Lois Lane. Lois isn't really interested, but being the great gal that she is, she uses the Duplicator Ray on herself, creating a Bizarro Lois Lane. And the two eventually leave Earth to settle another Earth-like planet they fittingly name Bizarro World. Or, and forgive me here, Hetre, which is Earth backwards, which they populate with more and more duplicates of themselves. But don't worry! They have pretty rock necklaces that say Bizarro and Bizarro Lois 1, so we don't get confused. Number 1. Ultraman. In the universe of Earth 3, things are a little turned upside down. Instead of being driven by the morals of good versus evil, the people of this universe are inspired by strength above all else. I can't really relate. Born on a dying Krypton where Kryptonians evolved to be empowered by green kryptonite to a maniacal version of Jor-El aptly named Jor-Il, baby Kal-Il is jettisoned off to Earth. But instead of the classic morals, he's instead inspired by his father to become the strongest possible being with absolutely no weaknesses in himself and the others around him. When Kal lands on the farm of Johnny and Martha Kent, he uses pieces of green kryptonite to empower himself and forces the dysfunctional couple to be his parents until the totally mature age of 7, when he murders them both and sets the farm ablaze. Eventually, this self-proclaimed Ultraman murders the President of the United States of America and takes control of the world, creating the crime syndicate of America with other evil alternate versions of classic characters, including an evil Wonder Woman, Superwoman, and evil version of Batman, Owlman.
Coming in at number 10, we've got Bat-Zaro from Bizarro World. Hailing from the planet founded by Superman's own twisted doppelganger, Bat-Zaro is the self-proclaimed world's worst detective, and spends his nights shooting down couples in Crime Alley as an awful inversion of Bruce Wayne's motivation for being Batman. More of a weird comedic foil to Batman than an actual supervillain threat, Bat-Zaro would eventually try to redeem himself by fighting the Joker and jumping in front of a bullet meant for the real Batman, meaning maybe Bat-Zaro had a little bit of good in him after all. Coming in at number 9, we have the Red Death. The first of many Dark Knights on this list, twisted variants of Bruce Wayne that banded together to escape their dying dark multiverse, the Red Death is a chilling example of what Batman could become if he cared more for his mission than he did for his friends. After the deaths of many of his allies in Gotham City, this version of Batman determined that he was more worthy of using the Speed Force than Barry Allen, and could have saved Robin's life if he was only a bit faster. Unfortunately, this version of Bruce took this plan way too far, capturing the Flash and combining his powers into himself, becoming the Red Death and forcing Barry Allen's consciousness to watch as he began killing every supervillain on the planet and continued his rampage across the entire multiverse. Coming in at number 8, we have the Dawnbreaker. In a dark multiverse world where Bruce Wayne was the one gifted a Green Lantern ring instead of Hal Jordan, this version of Bruce quickly became frustrated with all of the restrictions the Lantern Corps placed on his ring and his ability to wield emotions. Killing every criminal he encountered, Batman's power grew as he combined his ring with the darkness in his own heart, becoming known as the Dawnbreaker as he systematically wiped out every other Green Lantern in the galaxy. By the time he was done, he was the only lantern-wielding entity left in his universe, and joined the Dark Knights in order to find more victims to punish. Coming in at number 7, we have Owlman, the evil opposite of Bruce Wayne from the inverted Earth 3. Born under the name of Thomas Wayne Jr., as a young boy, Owlman murdered his younger brother Bruce and had his butler Alfred kill his parents to ensure that the Wayne fortune was not wasted by their frivolous spending. Using his costumed identity as Owlman to intimidate the leaders of Gotham into falling under his control, Owlman was a twisted version of everything that Batman stood for, and every time their universes have crossed over has led to some incredibly dramatic battles. And speaking of evil Batmen named Thomas Wayne, coming in at number 6, we have the Batman of the Flashpoint universe, aka Thomas Wayne Sr. In a world where Bruce was gunned down by Joe Chill instead of his parents, Thomas Wayne became a dark and murderous red-tinted Batman, while Martha would be cursed to become this universe's version of the Joker. While initially an anti-hero ally during the first reveal of the Flashpoint universe, this Batman would go on to become a threat to the real Batman when he returned to the main DC universe and allied himself with Bane in order to get Bruce to quit being Batman forever. There's probably an easier way to get your son to stop being a superhero than allying yourself with a supervillain, but hey, I guess that's just some Wayne family drama that will continue to unfold as Thomas Wayne continues to make his way through the DC multiverse. Coming in at number 5, we have the Merciless, another of the Dark Knights. In an alternate universe in which Ares, the god of war, declared war against all of existence, Batman stood with the rest of the Justice League in a battle that literally lasted for eons, until the sole combatants left in the entire universe were Ares and Batman, still standing through sheer willpower alone. After landing a blow that knocked Ares' magical helmet off, Batman was forced to put the helmet on to finally defeat the God of War, leaving him the only survivor of this burned-out universe. This Batman unfortunately became addicted to the power and bloodlust granted to him by the helmet, and joined forces with the rest of the Dark Knights in order to survive the destruction of his universe, going forth to find new worlds for him to become a new God of War against. Coming in at number 4, we've got another of the Dark Knights with Murder Machine. This version of Bruce Wayne comes from a universe very similar to the main DC continuity until the tragic death of Alfred Pennyworth at the hands of multiple Batman villains. Heartbroken and traumatized by the footage of the incident, Batman convinces his friend Cyborg to recreate Alfred's personality as an artificial intelligence. Unfortunately, this AI takes its task of protecting Batman far too literally, altering his brain chemistry to erase any sense of fear and completely replacing Bruce's frail human body with a metal replacement. Taking the name of Murder Machine, this Batman spread the Alfred AI throughout Gotham and was able to kill kill every criminal in Arkham Asylum, showing what would truly happen if Batman didn't have a heart. Coming in at number 3, we have the Devastator, a horrifying combination of Batman and Doomsday. This story takes place on one of the many dark multiverse worlds that saw Superman going rogue and taking over the entire planet, even murdering his own wife. To stop the demented Man of Steel, this Batman was forced to ingest the Doomsday virus, a last-ditch effort to save the planet that gave Bruce the strength to kill Superman, but at the terrible cost of his own mind. Furthermore, the Doomsday virus began to spread off Bruce's body and kill off the rest of this world, dooming the planet anyways, and leaving the Devastator as a beast-like Batman waiting for the rest of the Dark Knights to save him from his collapsing planet and give him a new target to hunt, even if eventually this Doomsday Batman hybrid would be defeated by, you guessed it, the real Superman. Coming in at number 2, we have the Emperor of Shadow, aka Bruce Wayne. In a recent one-off issue entitled Batman Superman Authority Special, Batman discovers a reality from the dark multiverse where Ra's al Ghul's plans to dominate humanity have come to pass, and the League of Shadows has become an Empire of Shadows, controlling the entire world. To make matters worse, the leader of this empire is a Bruce Wayne who gave in to Ra's al Ghul's teachings and embraced his position as the world's new emperor. While Batman and Superman were eventually able to destroy the link between this world and the regular DC universe in order to prevent an invasion, this twisted version of Bruce Wayne is still out there, likely biding his time until the next opportunity arises for the dark multiverse to attack the regular multiverse once again. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the Batman Who Laughs. In a dark alternate world where the Joker realizes he's dying and begins a mass killing spree of everyone in Gotham, Batman is forced to finally kill his fated foe. Unfortunately, at the moment of death, Bruce was infected with a special brand of Joker venom that completely flipped his moral compass, but left intact all of his intelligence and planning. All of the chaos of the Joker with the brains of Batman, this supervillain is Bruce Wayne's worst nightmare come to life, and so far remains the most evil and deadly variant to ever be seen across the entire dark multiverse.
Alright, at number 10 we have the very silly but nonetheless evil Super Enemies. In the 1970s animated TV show Super Friends, there's an episode in 1979 called Universe of Evil, where Superman travels to an alternate universe to meet the evil counterparts to the Super Friends, very creatively named the Super Enemies. And the team is made up of all those bad guys we've all known so well and grown up with. You know, like Aquaman with an eye patch, and tinted red Batman, and oh, who could forget the iconic alien monkey Gleek. What a trailblazing team of supervillains they were. But as much as I roast them, they do actually pose a decent threat to Superman in this storyline, to the point where they team up with the military armed with kryptonite weapons, and even bring in their own version of Superman, giving our Superman a good old run for his money. But luckily, Superman Prime finds something called an antimatter flask, which turns all the super enemies back to being good again. Thank God Aquaman retires that eye patch and is no longer so intensely menacing looking. What a relief.
Number 9, Justice League of Assassins. Unfortunately, this evil Justice League didn't stick around too long. Being first introduced in Superman Volume 4, number 15 in March 2017, the Justice League of Assassins on Earth 14 were a group of augmented, mostly non-superpowered soldiers led by the obviously powerful Superman. The team was made up of Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, Batman, Harley Quinn, and Green Lantern. With the exception of Superman, their powers relied mainly on weapons and technology, but primarily they used advanced firearms. Ultimately, they were all slaughtered, with this Superman being kidnapped by Prophecy, which is a shame, because this team looked super cool and they seemed to inhabit a pretty dark and grim looking post-apocalypse. Could have been very interesting.
At number 8, we have the Conglomerate. This group is basically a bizarro version of the Justice League created by Booster Gold. The group is formed after Booster's departure from the Justice League International due to a lack of respect from his peers. When Booster first fails to bring together a competent group of heroes to form the first iteration of the Conglomerate, someone named Claire Montgomery comes in to manage the group. With her, she brings along the likes of Deadeye, an alternate Green Arrow, Fiero, a guy with Fire powers: Frostbite, an ice power guy; Elastaman, a stretchy man; Element Man, much like Metamorpho; Scarab, a knockoff of Blue Beetle; and Slipstream, a dollar store Flash. When they engage in a small friendly skirmish with the Justice League International, the fight quickly turns serious, and everyone learns at once that these new members have actually been brought from an antimatter world called Quard, and they're basically just entirely evil. And always had been. Luckily, the JLI take them down, but it's a close one.
Number 7, Squadron Sinister. This isn't so much an evil alternate Justice League as this team actually appears in the Marvel universe. But I'm gonna count it because I'm just stubborn like that. The original Squadron Sinister was created as a sort of obvious play on DC Comics Justice League characters Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, and The Flash, with the characters Hyperion, Nighthawk, Dr. Spectrum, and the hilariously named Wizard, respectively. The team was created by the Grand Master after he encountered the Squadron Supreme, and they first appeared in Avengers number 69 when they were pitted against the Avengers in a game between the Grand Master and Kang the Conqueror. They're bad guys who are counterparts to 4 members of the Justice League. I gotta stop justifying my reasons. They're on the list. Argue with me down below if you don't like it.
Alright, at number 6 we have the Justice Lords. Appearing in the animated series Justice League in the episode titled A Better World, this evil team is led by a radicalized Superman. Radicalized because he witnesses Lex Luthor murder the Flash and threaten nuclear war. So, Superman decides he'd abandon the typical hero's code of conduct and kill the bald tyrant himself. And in this alternate universe, Lex Luthor isn't just some super rich supervillain working away in hiding, he's actually worked his way to becoming the President of the United States. So, after his death, there is a power vacuum to be filled. And who would be better rulers than this evil alternate Justice League? No one. They didn't think so anyway, so they take over and put in place a totalitarian government with the justification being that they are protecting humanity from itself. And they start calling themselves the Justice Lords, which, I mean, you should sort of know you're the bad guys when the word Lord is in your title. Luckily, the real Superman is able to catch on and take them out of power before anything goes too far.
Number 5, Injustice League. Okay, so we have the Crime Syndicate of America, but there was also a team of villains put together to fight that team of villains. So, sort of technically making these villains heroes, but also not really because they're still villains. Right? The important information here is that the Injustice League, at least the one I'm referring to, was formed to combat the Crime Syndicate of America from Earth 3. The team's villainous members included Bizarro, Black Manta, Black Adam, Catwoman, Deathstroke, Sinestro or Parallax, Captain Cold, and they were formed and led by Lex Luthor. The team first appeared in Forever Evil number 3 in January of 2014 when the Crime Syndicate of America invaded the Prime Earth universe and tried, and very nearly did, take over the world.
At number 4 we have the Injustice Syndicate. I know, lots of groups with Syndicate and Injustice in their names. Well, that's because this evil version of the Justice League actually exists as a sort of combination between the Injustice League and the Crime Syndicate, both of which are included in this list respectively. Appearing in Batman the Brave and the Bold, in the episode called Deep Cover for Batman, Batman manages to travel to their evil dimension and infiltrate their operations disguised as Owlman. He sees that this group comprises of an evil version of himself, along with other evil alternate versions of other heroes he knows and works with. While eavesdropping, Batman learns of their plans to, destroy other universes entirely, which of course, he feels is something he needs to put a stop to. And it can't wait, naturally. So he decides to take all of them on himself, and because he's Batman, and it is his TV show after all, he wins. Those universes can thank him later.
Number 3, the Joker League. In Emperor Joker number 1 of October 2000, the Joker has gained 99.99% of the reality warping powers of the 5th dimensional being, Mr. Mxyzptlk, and he used them to completely warp the world into an insane offshoot of our real world. In this Joker world, he has put together an evil, insane version of the Justice League called the Joker League of Anarchy. The team members include some characters we've seen before, such as Bizarro number 1, Enigma, who's the Riddler, Prowler, Gravedigger Lad, who is actually Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, Harley Quinn, and Poison Ivy. He has also created completely new characters that are wholly original to this story: Ignition, Bounty, Schism, and Scorched. He even has Lex Luthor as a jester. They are basically just the henchmen of this already pretty much all-powerful version of the Joker. Just another way of keeping him entertained, it seems.
At number 2, I'm putting the Injustice League from the video game Injustice: Gods Among Us. Most of us already know how this story goes, but in case you don't, this is one of the cooler and more well-written storylines about an evil alternate version of the Justice League. In most cases on this list, these evil groups are created by an alternate reality, which is always fun but pretty simple to come up with. But this storyline shows a radicalized Superman leading the Justice League to the dark side. And like I said, this isn't because he's an evil version of Superman or one that's possessed by some evil force. He's genuinely turned to evil after the Joker tricks him into killing Lois Lane. So to combat this new unexpected evil force, Batman decides to bring in other members from the Justice League from another universe, and the result is some pretty great fighting gameplay. And right as the game was being released, a comic book series of the same name was also being released in tandem, serving as a prequel to the game, where you can derive general story points from the game itself. Most of the backstory I just explained actually comes from the comics. It's cool to see the video game and comic book worlds working in tandem, and they make a pretty cool new storyline that I figure has to be ranked pretty high on this list.
Number 1. The Crime Syndicate of America. The Crime Syndicate of America hails from the strength-obsessed Earth 3, and is a twisted, evil version of many characters who make up the main universe Justice League of America. Its members include Ultraman in place of Superman, Thomas Wayne Jr., aka Owlman, and Alfred Pennyworth as the Outsider, Superwoman, who was Lois Lane at one point and Donna Troy at another, the cowardly Harold Jordan and vengeful John Stewart, who are both Power Ring, which are evil Green Lanterns, at different times, John Allen and John Chambers separately also as Johnny Quick, Atomica, Sea King, Deathstorm, Grid, and John Johns. They come into contact with the main universe many times, and they almost always spell out bad news, as you'd expect from the antithesis to the Justice League of America.